Hello and welcome to the Coming Down to Earth with Spirit podcast with me, your host, David Hale. In the podcast, we'll be talking about mediumship and all things spiritual in a down-to-earth and honest kind of way, with a touch of humour also. So I hope you can join me on my podcast journey so you can learn from my own spiritual journey and experiences with spirit in the aim to help you on your own spiritual journey, or it may just be to answer any of those questions that you have about the spiritual world. So join me now as we get into this episode. Hello everyone and welcome back to another listener questions episode. And in this episode we're going to talk about or address a question from Joanne, which is basically about medical issues within a reading. And the question basically is, would spirit tell you if a person is not well? And if so, how would I deal with that? So I did do a spiritual impacts episode talking about my experience with this. So you can go back and listen to that if you like. But ultimately, to answer the question here, I mean, spirit, they know what's going on down here, right? So sometimes spirit will tell us if someone isn't feeling too well or if someone's got some kind of ailment somewhere. And I have been told by spirit certain things, but never anything that's scary or frightening, and certainly no death predictions, because ultimately, we are not medical professionals. We should never ever diagnose, and we should never ever frighten anyone into going to see a doctor, or or frightening someone to think that they've got something wrong with them. And if you do this work for the best of intentions, spirit are never going to tell you anyway if someone is on their last legs, right? Or that should never happen, because that's not what we're here for. As mediums, we're here to prove survival after physical death. That's what spirit come through for, and to give the evidence that they're still alive in the other world, and then to give messages of guidance, reassurance, etc., etc. So they don't come through to tell people, to tell us if someone's not very well. Unfortunately, I have heard horror stories by lots of people that have come to me for reassurance because they've been told by other mediums that they've got this wrong with them, or they've actually been told this, that their loved one is going to pass away in 4 months' time. I mentioned that example in the Spiritual Impacts episode. So unfortunately that does happen, but it should never happen. That's not what we're here for. Now, spirit might give it to us give us that information in a way which guides the person to go and see a doctor or something, but it should never be it's not for us to diagnose, right? Ultimately. So, I mean, for example, spirit have said to me, can you give that your sitter healing because they've got a bad back? Because I felt that I've had a physical pain in my lower back. So I know that spirit's given me that just to say, I know that your sitter has got a pain in the back, give them healing. And I will say it and they'll say, yes, I have got pain in my back. Or spirit will say to me, mention the headaches that this person's getting. And I'll say it and they'll say, yes, I've been having headaches for the past week, or I suffer from migraines or whatever. So spirit might give it in that way just to acknowledge that they are aware of this situation and that they're bringing in healing for it. But spirit have never said to me, that person's got cancer, or that person should be worried because they've got something wrong with their eyes, or whatever it might be. Spirit have never ever said that to me, because ultimately I don't want that information anyway, because what am I going to do with it? Because I'm not going to say to a person, oh, by the way, go and have your eyeballs checked because I think there's a tumour behind your eye. I'm never going to say it to anyone anyway. So spirit know that I don't want that kind of information, right? But sometimes I might say things to give the person a push. So again, I'll give an example I gave in the Spiritual Impacts episode, where I was doing a reading for a lady. Her husband had come through and he'd mentioned her blood pressure. All he said was, has she checked her blood pressure? And that's all. And it wasn't giving me, was it too high? Was it too low? Nothing like that. So I said to her, have you had your blood pressure checked recently? And she said, no, I don't feel I need to. I'm all right. Yeah, nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned. Then she went to the doctors a week later, who then put her on tablets because her blood pressure was too high. So unless I'd said that, she may have not gone to the doctors to have a checkup, and her blood pressure would have been through the roof and could have caused all sorts of problems. So that's the way that spirit might get someone to do something, but it's never, well, for me personally, it's never in a worrying or concerning way. And I've certainly never picked up anything really negative at all. But also it comes down to personal responsibility, right? You are responsible as a medium for what you say to people. And if you are happy to say to someone, I think you're going to have cancer, which is a horrendous thing to say to someone, then that's on the medium. If that medium feels better for leaving that person worrying, then that's on them. But it's not up to the medium to tell that person that. So, I would personally avoid saying anything like that. You'd put it in as if that medium really did pick up that someone might have cancer, then you don't just come out and say, I think you might have cancer, go and see a doctor. You would use your intelligence and put it in a different way. You might say, oh, have you got a doctor's appointment coming up or something? And put it in that kind of way rather than put it in that kind of direct way, because again, that's not up to us to give that diagnosis, right? So that's how I handle it. That's a couple of examples there of what, how it's come through to me and what I would say. But yeah, I most definitely would not give anybody any horrendous news, because again, it's not my job to do that. But yeah, and without sounding like a parrot, again, if you do this work with the best of intentions and you do it to help people, which is what we should be doing, then we should never leave people feeling frightened or distressed, right? So, and then again, if you do it with the best intentions, then you're not going to get that kind of information coming through anyway. That's just my opinion on it. That's just my viewpoint on it, based on my experience. And just based on just my intelligence, right? You don't leave people feeling distressed, and that's quite. I guess that's quite common sense to me. But that's it. Thanks for the question, Joanne, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Well, that's it for today's listener question episode. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer based on the spiritual world or mediumship, then please do email me at davidhmedium@outlook.com. You can email me as many questions as you like. I'll add them to the list and I'll get to them as quick as I can. But until then, thanks for listening, look after yourselves, have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you all soon.